Hey there, guys. This is The Unit with Reasoner and Jason.
Ew.
And we're bringing you our second Squadcast today. And we're talking about FOBs. Before we begin, we want to say two things. One, thanks for the massive support that we had on Reddit and also the great comments that we had on YouTube. For a first video being put out like this, it was really great to see people engaging with us, giving us positive feedback. And it's nice to know that people enjoy listening to our boring voices. So, yeah.
Our boring voices indeed.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. That's really good. The second thing just to mention is that we do have a Twitter account and we want to try and push that as fast as possible. So that Twitter account is @TheUnitPC. So that's @TheUnitPC. Go ahead, share there. We'll, have some conversations on there hopefully, and also post every time we upload a video. The first place to find our new stuff. Great. So that's the that's the introduction out of the way. We're talking about forward operating bases today, FOBs, and it's a really it's really topical at the moment, isn't it, Jace?
Yeah, it is. Like many other things in Squad at the moment, you've got many forum posts, Reddit posts discussing how to build a FOB. What not to do, what to do, and what's your ideas on it?
Yeah, and there's loads of different people talking about stuff. I think everybody has their own approach to how best to build a FOB. We've basically cracked it down into 4 points that we want to talk about today, and this is going to be quite casual. It's just going to be a casual podcast-esque chat. So, we'd say, put something else on, get on with some work, and just this is something that you can just listen to while you're getting on with other stuff. So it's not going to be super serious and super condensed. We're just going to be having a chat. But we've broken down forward operating bases into 4 points. So our first is an introduction to FOBs, what they do in Squad, how they differ from rally points, etc. Our second one is how not to build a FOB, and this is something that I think personally I feel is quite important. We want to get that out there because there's a lot of people doing things right, but I think it's fair to say the community has noticed. And I don't know what you would say, Jace, but I've noticed there's a lot of people doing things a little bit wrong as well.
Yeah, well, if I was to comment on it now, I'd be using a lot of expletive languages or speak languages. I don't really want to discuss it now, but I'm sure we'll get onto that in a minute. And I'm sure my language will end up being juicy. But I'll try and control myself.
Yeah. The third point we're going to move on to is going to be how to build a FOB. In comparison, how not to build a FOB, and then how to build a FOB, like what we would suggest do. And then the last point we're gonna come on to is useful FOB tricks and unorthodox FOB usage. So that's something that slightly shadows over from PR, and it's an interesting tactic that I've seen a few people see. But we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. So that's 4 points again. And in the description of this video, we'll make sure that the timestamps of each point, including the introduction as well, are down in the video. So if you want to listen to one section and then go off and do something else and then listen to another one, all those quick links contents will be there at the bottom. Great. Anything you want to add, Jace, or can we crack on?
No, we can crack on.
Fantastic. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to do a basic introduction to FOBs, forward operating bases. So the FOB. Well, I think if you look back in history, in military history, and you'd know more about this probably than me, Jason, but the idea of a forward operating base, whether it was called that or not, is, it's an age-old concept, isn't it, of establishing somewhere that you can manage the battle from, a relative safety, but within the battlefield itself.
Yeah, no, 100%. If we look back, I'm not going to get into too many boring details because my history degree is boring enough as it is in my actual university time and doing it in my free time. If we look back, to medieval examples and Roman examples, every army, that's ever walked the earth has had to set up camp somewhere or another. The term forward operating base is a modern term. Ancient terms, they're more camps back then. Obviously, the weapons weren't as sophisticated enough as back then it is today. So they're more of camps. But today's modern forward operating bases, they could be huge. Or even very small. They really do vary in size, which you do actually find in Squad. You do get the odd massive skyscraper.
Yeah.
FOB, like super FOB they call it.
Yeah, super FOB. Yeah. Overkill FOB, and then you do get the smaller ones as well. And that there's different purposes, different things in there. We'll get onto that. Yeah. So FOBs are, a real life thing. They are, as many other things are in Squad, an accurate representation of what goes on, or semi-accurate. It's still a game. And although in real life they're more used for as well as defense, looking after soldiers, medical treatment, somewhere to stay, sleep. In squad, they're more just to do with defense and respawn points. And I think it's really important to note, especially because I think a lot of people listening to this are probably going to be first-time squad players, the difference between a FOB and an FOB. A FOB and a
rally point.
A rally point. Thank you for saving my bacon there. Great.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.
Yeah, a FOB and a rally point. So a FOB is forward operating base, and the FOB is the blue, well, sometimes red if they're getting attacked, but blue triangle you'll see on your map. And in squad, a FOB allows the team to, as long as it isn't under attack, the team to unlimited spawn, repeatedly spawn on that point. There's no ticket. Well, you do lose tickets for respawning, obviously, as the game mechanic, but where rally points are quick to deploy, you can deploy them every 2 minutes or so, and they're easily hideable. An FOB is a little bit more obvious, but obviously a rally point has a limited amount of respawns on it, so you've got to keep placing them. A FOB, once it's down, if it's well defended, and if it's well, if it doesn't come under attack, it can just sit there for the rest of the game. The other important thing to note about a forward operating base in squad is that it must be at least 400 meters away from another FOB if one's already been placed in any direction. So if you imagine a circle 400 meters out, and you can count 400 meters by using the grids on the map, it has to be at least that far away. I think it's 400 meters, or is it 4 kilometers? No, not 400 meters.
No, 400 meters, definitely 400 meters. What must be said? Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't think a squad map is 4 kilometers yet, but
okay, maybe.
I think as well, it must make sure we mention that. So I was reading this on the forum post. The squad grid, map sizes and the grid squares differ between the map. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but I think one map is 130 meters per grid square, and then another one, such as that small map that you love.
I didn't know that. Wow, okay.
What's that map that you love? The really dirty alleyway map.
I can't remember what it's called, but yeah.
But yeah, that one's 30, 40 meters. So yeah, there is a difference with that. But again, you still get an indication on your screen telling you when you are 400 meters or when you're not 400 meters away.
Yeah, if
so use that as a guide. Yeah.
So who can place a FOB? Well, any squad leader can place a FOB as long as they are in the squad leader position on in the game, and they have a squad leader kit on them, and all they need. So with a rally point, you need one other member of your squad. I believe with a FOB, you need 2 other members of the team. I don't actually think it necessarily needs to be members of your squad. I think it could be 1 member of your squad and 1 member of the team, as long as you've got 2 people around you. I think that's right, isn't it, Jason? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I thought it was 2 people from your squad, but don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it does, because every time I've set up an FOB, there has been 2 members from my squad.
I think I've done it with somebody else, and I mean, look, maybe I'll eat my words, but I think I've done it from somebody else on the team as well. I think I have.
So, but it'd be nice.
If you can't, then they need to put that in, definitely. But I think you can. But even if you can't, you need 2 members of your squad to put one down. And they're a bit more obvious, aren't they, than rally points? Like, there's a big box that goes down with a radio antenna pushing up from it, and they are a little harder to hide, aren't they? I think.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I think the rally point is just like you said, a bunch of backpacks on the floor, which could be concealed in, for example, like a bush. But that still doesn't mean you still can't hide an FOB radio. I've seen many squad leaders, and then myself, and obviously yourself as well, have ended up hiding them in like a tree or a building, or any form of point out sight.
Any form of cover that isn't you don't want to put it on. You don't want to put it on the top of a hill somewhere where it's going to be really obvious that the antenna's sticking out, and you can see the silhouette.
Or on an objective.
yeah, or on an objective. That's quite. I mean, there's 1 or 2 times where it's forgivable, but the majority of
there's
times
a few
you
examples.
Don't want to put one down. And we get onto that later.
Yeah.
So the other really important thing, the final thing to talk about, really, when introducing a FOB, is the fact that in comparison to a rally point, it is the thing that allows you to use the in-game building mechanics. So if you don't know what that is, if you're completely fresh to Squad, or if you haven't really seen it yet because you only played a few games, when you place a FOB, it gives the squad leader an ability, barring they've racked up enough points by waiting for the FOB to generate build points. It gives them an ability to spend those build points in order to put down foundations for fortifications, basically. So the fortifications would be things such as sandbags, HESCO walls or H blocks, bunkers, even ammo caches, like ammo supplies that people can reload ammo from, all the way to sort of things like tile walls, ladders, everything like that. So it gives quite a versatile, it allows you to be really versatile when building, but it allows you to build anyway. It allows you to really entrench yourself in a location if that's what you want to do. And that's not always the good thing, but it's basically how you access the building mechanic. I know in future updates of Squad, when logistics come in, it's going to change, isn't it? I mean, you know more about it than me because of PR, but from what explain to me what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, no, so, I mean, I was reading on the forums again, and obviously from Project Reality experience, I believe that the logistics system will be entering the battlefield soon. Not sure when that's coming. Same with the vehicles, no idea when that's happening, but I'm assuming the logistics and the vehicles are going to come in side by side. Now, how it works on Project Reality, for those guys that are familiar with it, should be already aware, is that to build an FOB, you would need supply crates, and to get those supply crates, you would need a logistic truck or a logistic helicopter, or any form of a larger transport helicopter, and they would be able to drive to a point on the map or fly to a point on the map, and by pressing the button, you'd be able to drop crates either from the sky or just out the back of a truck, and then from there, the squad leader would have the ability to place emplacements, gun emplacements, fortifications like you can do in Squad, and then build your FOB from there.
And that's up and coming. I know they definitely confirmed logistics, so that'll be later on, and it'll actually, what a lot of people are saying on the forums is the problems that are currently being caused by FOBs will probably be slowly phased out by the time with the bringing in of logistics, because it won't allow the squad leader to do as much in such a short space of time, and X, Y, and Z. So that'll change the dynamic slightly. But there we go. I think that's quite a concise and fair introduction to forward operating base.
I agree.
We've covered all the bases there, so that's good. That's our introduction to the forward operating base, and now we'll move on to our second point, which is how not to build an FOB. Stick with us. Okay, on to the second topic of discussion then that me and Jason are going to chat about today. And this is probably the one that a lot of people are going to want to listen to, especially if they're new squad leaders or new to building FOBs. It's one of the things, I think, there's a lot of pet hates, there's a lot of new player mistakes that are being made, I think, in game, and that's is causing a little bit of drama. I know you've seen it, Jace.
I've seen drama, yes,
stuff, yeah.
I've seen it in game as well.
Yeah, and in game, yeah. Of people, building FOBs and some of the mistakes they're making. So hopefully we can try and clear some of those up. And if you're going into the game thinking, right, I want to be a squad leader, I want to build FOBs, this is hopefully going to be invaluable for you, so you won't piss anybody off and make the same mistake. I think I'll start us off here, and I want to say my most important thing about a FOB is not getting attached to it. Mm-hmm. That for me is the most important thing. I don't know about you, but here's my rundown. The one thing I see a lot of at the moment, and we've seen this when we play together, Jason, is people build a FOB. They'll spend 15 to 20 to 30 minutes building it up. It might be in a good strategic location, it might be in a bad strategic location, that is besides the point, but they'll spend a lot of time and a lot of manpower building it up. Don't get me wrong, they'll look beautiful, they'll be 3 layers deep with huge walls and ladders up everywhere and everything like that, and it'll be great, but people will just sit back at that FOB, and a squad who built the FOB will just defend the FOB. They'll just sit there in the middle of nowhere and wait for people to come and attack them, and they'll do nothing. They'll just sit and be static and do nothing. And for me, anyway, that's like the number one thing you should not do with a FOB, is get attached to it and just sit there. Because if you're not in the fight, you can't win the fight. You know what I mean? If you're just sitting at the back, looking after your little homestead FOB, you're not killing anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what you feel about that?
I mean, I could say numerous points if I'm honest.
We'll go on. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah, I think for me the number one though is don't build on the objective. For the love of Christ, please keep a FOB off the objective. Unless it is on, for example, the map with the castle. I think that is probably the only point on a map I could think where you would need to dig in.
Yeah.
And that's only as the US Army side, not as the militia side.
Yeah, if you've capped that, you're on about the map where if you're on the US, no, it's not the US Army. I think it's Russians versus insurgents or something like that, isn't it? Is it? Yeah.
I think there's similar maps. Yeah,
there's similar maps in there, but the map we're talking about, regardless of game mode and regardless of teams, is the one where there's at the top left of the map. There's like an abandoned castle, and it's like half built, and so it's got separate layers. That point can be quite hard to defend because it's surrounded by hills, but it's almost like the castle has been designed there to sort of part build a FOB for you. Yeah. And because of how the game mode works when you're attacking round, it can be a really tough one to defend because the next objective as that side is so far away. It's all the way over to the east side of the map. So that is like maybe the only forgivable time in which, but I wouldn't even recommend that. If you're going to do that, defend it from a hilltop. For me personally, I mean, I know you've done it before. Well, we've done it before together, and it has worked. But similarly, whether you put a FOB down or not, that position, because it's surrounded by hilltops, is just open to be battered by grenades, GLs, and RPGs. I mean, if it's a situation where you've got enough time to really fortify that position, then great, yeah, because the walls do offer some extra protection as well. But I personally wouldn't say that one all the time. And on any other map, at any other objective, don't do it. And the reason is because they expect there to be one there. That's it.
Yeah,
if you're defending a position, a point, and there's a FOB there, if you lose, it might make the point a bit easier to defend, but if you lose that position, a number of things happen. One, as the position is being overrun, because that's where the enemy are focusing their fire and their advance on, as the position's being overrun, you will bleed tickets from friendlies spawning on that FOB to defend that objective, and they will just spawn camp that FOB and you'll bleed tickets. And also, that when you do lose the objective, if you lose the objective, which is, objectives change hands all the time, when you do lose that, not only are you losing the tickets for losing the objective, but you're also losing the FOB. Because the FOB and the objective are sat on the same place. And when I say objective, I mean a flag point. So, like when you have to move in and capture them, or an ammo box, on insurgency search. Like, because all you're doing is making it easier for the enemy team to focus all their firepower in one position. I think that's right. I think it's fair to say, isn't it?
Yes. As well, I'd say don't box yourself in. So moving away from the idea of the castle now, if you're setting up a forward observation base, a compound, or anywhere like a building or anywhere like that, don't box yourself in. All right, leave at least, now for me, I'd say leave at least 2 entrances open, possibly even 4, simply because it's like you're trapping yourself in a jail cell, and you ain't going to get out if they're surrounding the area. You're just making it easier for them to kill you. They can throw grenades over, which will ruin your day, ruin everyone else's day, and it will just end the game horribly for your team.
And if you've not got any, another thing I see is people building FOBs, and they'll build them, and we'll get onto this. It's a good idea to build a FOB in a location that's not a point, but that's already fortified in some way by the map. But if you're doing that, don't block up every single doorway that point. So on the more desert maps, there's those compounds that have, like they're sort of classic Afghan compounds, and they've got the doorways and the walls and the large sand walls and stuff. And people build FOBs in there, and what happens is people get so defensive, really really defensive, and almost scared, like they want to like hide away in the FOB. They'll just sandbag up all the entrances. And so as a player, when you spawn on that FOB, instead of being able to find an entrance and run through it, you have to climb over the wall, possibly damage yourself in the process, which means the medic's got to go around and patch you all up a little bit. And climbing over a wall, I mean, that's just asking to be shot if the FOB is being watched. Yeah. The ideal, for me personally, is if you're in that sort of a position, is, leave 1 or 2, as Jason says, leave 1 or 2 entrances open, and defend them. Just because you're not bricking it up doesn't mean you can't defend it. Put, on the inside of the wall, for example, on the inside of the doorway, put sandbags there and set a guy there to just watch the door. That's what you need. And then when friendlies come past them to go, they can just easily slip out very quickly.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's it, really. That's just 101. Let's talk about designs. I think people are going to want to hear about what we recommend for the design of a FOB as well. Mm-hmm. Have you got any thoughts on that? I know I do, but
yeah, no, I think designing a FOB is important. I think you need to assert. Well, you need to understand what kind of FOB you're building, whether it's going to be defensive or offensive, depending on where it's placed. I mean, for example, if I was to build a defensive forward observation forward operating base, you would want to be able to dig in. You want to be able to position yourselves in and around the area, possibly on top of sandbags, where you could oversee the enemies coming in from. You want to be able to identify the possible locations of where the enemies are going to be coming in, and just to be able to fire at them from the location. In terms of defensive structures, I'd say, and I know a lot of people don't do this at the moment, but I'd say put like what they're called HESCO walls, but the single ones. I put them in and around the forward operating base, just so if someone does throw a grenade in, shrapnel doesn't, it's restricted. You use that as a stop.
I mean, yeah, we'll talk more on what to do and how to design a FOB in section 3. But I think for me, and it's again another thing that I've seen people complaining about on the forums and the Reddit. For me, the biggest no do, and it's what happens every single time. You can tell when a new squad leader, and I mean we've done it occasionally as in our little group when we've been messing about on a semi-empty server and we've built a mega FOB, because you do need to have some fun sometimes, and if you're, as long as what you're doing, you're not doing it on a full server where people are trying to play the game seriously, fine, experiment with the building. But what happens on a lot of popular servers when the squad leaders are new and excited about building FOBs, which they should be, is they'll create a fishbowl. And I've seen that word being used on the forums, on the Reddit, and it's a perfect way to describe it. They will plonk an FOB down in the middle, and they'll build sandbags or HESCO walls, or a mixture of both, in a circle, maybe 2 or 3 stacks high, all the way around the FOB in about a 5 to 10 meter radius, and they'll be done. And they'll think, great, now my guys can jump over the sides to get to, my guys can jump over the sides to get out, but nothing can get in because all the areas are covered. Well, what happens then? It's the same as the bunkers that defended the Omaha landings, right? They were great because it's true. They were great because when you were putting down fire on the beach, or whatever, in a defensive scenario where the enemy are only coming from one way, for that, however long that period was where they were repelling, the Allied forces, they were fine. But as soon as the Allied forces got anywhere near these bunkers and indeed a fishbowl FOB, all they had to do was throw one grenade over the top into the FOB, and actually what you've done is your defense becomes an offense for the enemy, because it's like throwing a fucking ball into a goal, isn't it? It's just like getting it into a target, and your guys are not going to be quick enough to get out of that fishbowl to get away from that FOB. They get away from that grenade, and that grenade is just going to explode and kill everybody inside.
Agreed. What you've just brought up there was a fantastic point, actually. In terms of like manpower from a team that's attacking. So, for example, the Allied forces on the 6th of June, they had wave after wave of men hitting that. Okay, and if we use that in terms of put that into squad terms, if you're attacking, medics can happily all day long just keep reviving guys that are going down every so often, because even though the defending team is shooting at them and maybe even killing them, injuring them, the attacking team can pretty much pop smoke and just revive them, and they're not losing tickets because of that. But if they're going to assault your position, get right up close and personal, they throw a couple of grenades over, the medics aren't going to be able to, heal people.
The medics are going to go down as well.
The medics are going to get destroyed. Yeah. And I know as a medic, for me, that is the I don't like that when I go down.
It's not.
It's
Yeah,
not nice.
you're failing as a medic if you're
Pretty
dead on
much,
the floor going
yeah.
medic.
You do feel like a failure when you are a medic and you are down the floor crying for
If
another
you're
medic.
a medic asking for another medic, something's gone wrong. Unless really something bad's happened. But you should be far enough away from the action. I mean, we'll talk about medics in another cast,
of
but
course, yeah.
as a medic, if you need somebody else to deliver epinephrine or bandage you up, you've probably fucked up.
At that
You're probably
point
too
now,
close.
I'd safely say just Alt F4, right click on Squad and just uninstall the game, because there's no point carrying on.
But yeah, no. So I think that's probably the big no-do in regards to FOB structure is the fishbowl design. Other than that, and we'll go on to this in a second, very very quickly, in really shortly actually, on in what to do with FOBs and how to build them. But other than that, there's not really too many ways you can go wrong with a FOB. Just leave entrances open, make sure they're open, and make sure they're defended. Don't build fishbowl FOBs, and be a little bit. Don't do what the enemy expects you to do. Don't do what everybody else does. I mean, for example, when one time, Jace, you remember we were playing and we built an FOB, but the majority of the fences were actually defenses were actually on a roof. So we built a ladder up onto the roof. The roof wasn't a fishbowl; it was just on the roof. Soldiers could lie down behind a stack of sandbags, but they could easily get back down off the roof if they needed to. They were well defended, and it worked a treat, didn't it? Because the enemy were focusing fire up on the roof rather than up on the ground where the guys were actually being revived and medicked. And it wasn't what they expected. They were being shot from a height elevation. So that's it, really. Just don't do what they expect.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add, Jace, or can we move on to point 3?
Last little thing I'd probably say is the squad leaders don't be afraid to build FOBs as well. I know the FOB system can seem very daunting at first for new squad leaders. There's been not countless occasions. There's been a couple of times on several games that I've played where just squad leaders haven't built FOBs, and without FOBs, you aren't going to win the game. FOBs are essentially, they're essential to winning the game for your team, because you need mobile spawn points in and around the map closer to the points, because you can't just keep relying on rally points because they're unreliable, because at any point you could lose that and spawn back at the main base. So really, just don't be afraid to build FOBs. Yeah,
great. Okay, well, don't be afraid to build FOBs, and now we're going to go on to a section where we're going to tell you how to build a good FOB and what to do with them. So hopefully that'll pep your spirits up a little bit. Great. Join us in a second for Section 3, how to build FOBs. Section 3 then, how to build a FOB, how to in our opinion, use a FOB well, and basically a sort of a counter and opposite to what we've discussed in point 2 there. So just a little bit of tips and tricks and stuff that we'd recommend. I know I've got some stuff to say about this. Jace, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, can do. Use the defences as well. I'd start. Just assess what you've got around you first. Use the environment, and then from that, just build on it. Don't obviously over fortify, like you said. Don't build a fishbowl and a super FOB. But just fortify the area around you. If you think you need a bunker there to overlook a field of a field where the enemy may cross, do it. Don't be afraid to do so. As well as blocking some entrances if you need to. Okay, it really depends on the situation. Again, we've talked about whether it's a good idea or not. Again, but it's up to squad leaders to use their initiative and really assess what's going on around them. Because again, what we're talking about here is a theory, right? In practice, something can happen, something can evolve during the game where you need to go unorthodox and actually. Yeah, and I think we'll talk about that later. And in the next point, you might need to adapt your strategy and technique.
Yeah, I think what the first point you made there about assessing the environment and the surroundings regarding building the FOB is hugely important. For me, my number one tip. I mean, people are probably going to be wondering where should I place an FOB, and my number one tip in that regard would be place it somewhere away from, not too far from an objective, so that you can still be effective. Place it somewhere that it's going to be well hidden, and if it is really well hidden, don't make it less hidden by placing a load of defences around it. If you've got a great little defilade with a load of bushes and trees and stuff, plonk the FOB down there and just leave it. And if it's far enough away from the action, the likelihood of it is it's going to be a really great spawn point, but the enemy probably won't stumble across it because they won't see it from a distance because it doesn't have any sandbags or HESCO walls around it. But yeah, 400, 300 metres out from an objective, anywhere like that, anywhere I think that can overlook, and I know you'd agree with me, Jace, anywhere you think could overlook a heavy amount of traffic within the game. And what we mean by that is whether it be enemies moving, whether it be a defensive FOB to monitor friendlies pushing up, or whether it be a mixture of the both, and it be somewhere that you think is going to be a key point in the battle. If there's a clear line in which both teams are going to meet, let's say both teams are fighting over a neutral objective. Put it 200, 300 meters east, 400 meters east of that objective on a height. And allow the FOB to look down on that objective and give your attacking team some support, But put it anywhere that you think it's going to be useful, but don't put it anywhere obvious. That's the most important thing. Structure as well. I mean, like you say, it's really up in the air in regards to FOB structure. I mean, I've seen some amazing FOBs. I've seen some great FOBs. I've seen some awful FOBs. I mean, it's really tough, isn't it? I think talk to us a little bit more, Jace, about that idea of using single HESCO walls or smaller defences to minimise casualties while inside the FOB from grenades and RPGs, because that's a really important fact that not a lot of people think about.
Yeah, no, I mean, if someone, for example, another member of the other team, of the enemy team, come up to your compound or whatever your forward operator base is put against and throws a grenade in there. Just by placing in and around the area small HESCO little blocks or any form of obstacle to stop that grenade from going everywhere is going to help anyone inside. Obviously, you don't want to overcrowd it and to restrict movement, because inside that, if you are defending, you want to be able to move freely to defensive positions, without being obstructed. But anything to stop a grenade going everywhere is always a positive in my eyes. And I think the HESCO blocks, and I'm not sure what's on the militia side, because I haven't really squad led around the militia.
Yeah, there's not so much on the militia. There's not really any HESCOs. There's tire walls, which kind of act in a similar way, although they're a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just be sporadic. I think one of the best FOBs I ever saw was in no way secure, and that wasn't a negative thing. It allowed free flow movement in and out of the FOB and around the FOB. You don't want to make your FOB secure. Your FOB doesn't automatically become secure by creating a massive wall around it, right? It doesn't matter what defense you've got. Your FOB is secure by your guys completely surrounding it. So the defensive forces of that FOB completely surrounding it. If you've got unlinked sandbags in a general circle around your FOB, as long as you've got guys on each of those sandbags, they're going to be able to cover them sectors.
Yeah.
But with gaps and stuff, it allows those guys to freely and fluidly move between those locations when they need to, whether it be because a grenade's hit one side or there's a massive push from one side. They can easily shift to another area. I mean, one of the things you see a lot of as well is like you say, the super FOB. And what we mean by that is a FOB that's built, not even fishbowl, not even a small fishbowl, it on the outside, it's almost impenetrable. And, basically, they're huge, and you can see them from a mile off. And while they're really good for maybe pushing back RPGs and whatever, actually, because there's so much stuff, there's so many layers to them, they don't allow fluid movement between people, between movement in the FOB, and it just causes drama, doesn't it? Really, it's just if you've got loads of different walls and levels and stuff like that to the FOB, and it is a super FOB, you're going to walk all over each other. You're going to be stuck on each other. If I'm having to jump over sandbags to run away from a grenade, that's a big no-no.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to what we talked about in the last Squadcast and other points. Momentum again is key. Even if you're defending, you want to be able to move, because again, if you're not moving, even if it's in a restricted area, you are at the end of the day going to be, destroyed. To put it bluntly, they'll find the weak spots, no matter how good your super FOB may be. To you, attacking teams will find its weakness and then concentrate all its firepower on it until it just crumbles. And don't forget as well, if it is an attacking member of the team, they can also remove those structures. Those structures that you place, aren't there for the rest of the time on the map. The enemy team can remove them as they want.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Great. Is there much else we need to talk about how to build FOB?
No,
I don't think so. I think just be. I mean, it's the age-old thing. Is just use your common sense. Use your common sense. Do what you need to do. But there is certain things. Definitely remember about FOB placement. And fluid. That's the best. That's what I remember. There's that Bruce Lee quote, isn't there? Be like water, water can flow, But in seriousness, if your guys can move around that FOB in a fluid manner, and you can move around the FOB in a fluid manner, and everything can switch dependent on what the situation is, that's how a good FOB is. So sporadic placement of defences, not just walling yourself in. But great, I think we've covered enough there, really. So we've done point 2, how not to build an FOB. We've done point 3, how to build an FOB, and basically growing on point 2 there. The last thing we're going to talk about before rounding up is point 4, and that's basically we're going to have a brief discussion. It's going to be slightly less structured, but it's going to be about unorthodox FOB placement. How can you actually use an FOB in a way in which isn't the norm, and what would we recommend you do with that, when maybe to use FOB strats and when not to use them, etc. So that's going to be point 4, and that's coming up really shortly. Stick with us for that. Point 4 then, and I've got this mark. This is a bit of a tricky one. This is a little bit more complicated, and so this is for your this isn't for you early learners now, guys. All right, so if you're still wearing nappies, probably time to turn off the podcast, because we're getting serious business in Afghanistan. No, I'm kidding. But
I knew I do that impression around here, but we'll keep that for another day. Afghanistan.
No, oh dear. But I've got it down here as useful FOB tricks / unorthodox FOB usage, and in brackets, you'll be excited to know there is brackets to this title. Flanking and decoys to waste tickets. But basically, just unusual or different sort of higher level methods in squad of using FOBs. I'll start us off on this one, Jace, because I know you know a lot about this topic as me. So I'm going to get the more simple stuff out of the way, because I know you can expand on it. The best unorthodox trick for an FOB is using it not as a forward operating base in squad. And that sounds really counterproductive. That completely sort of blows away everything we said before. But hear me out. I am sane. I'm not mental. What I mean by that is use it purely as a spawn point. And we've done this before, haven't we, Jace? Use it as a spawn point and do nothing else with it. So, okay, visualize in your head, and maybe I can get a nice little infographic on the screen. Maybe I can't. At which point it will say,
we'll find out, won't we?
We'll see. We'll see. By the time you're watching this, you'll know. But imagine in your head you've got a map, okay, and at the top of this map is the enemy's objective that you're attacking. At the bottom of this map is your base or whatever. And on the left hand side of this map, on the west side, there's maybe a big hill, okay, and the hill cannot be seen over by the enemy's base, right? If they look west from their base, they cannot see over this hill. And let's say it's, there's loads of maps with a lot of foliage, whether it be, whether it be wheat fields, whether it be bushes, whether it be trees. So there's usually good places to hide them. And let's say it's something like that. You find a nice defilade that's well wooded up, well hidden. Plonk an FOB down there, and like I said before, do nothing with it. And it's something that I don't see enough of in squad. It's something that me and Jace, we've talked about casually before. But pop an FOB down. Pop an ammo crate down, make sure they're both hidden, and then leave it. Just use it as a spawn point to continue, attacking. And use it as a flanking device, yeah? Use it as a way so you can give guys a flank on the enemy instantly. We talked about flanking in the first video we did, just guides of being squad leader. If you haven't watched that, go and watch that. But use the FOB to not only allow yourselves to flank, but the rest of your team to flank. If you've got an FOB, a spawn point, on the flank of the enemy's objective that they're defending, everybody can just spawn from there and keep coming and coming and coming. And the likelihood of it is, if the game has been going for a long time, they won't have built up defences and they won't be prepared to defend from that side.
Yeah. For me, then, not building on that. I agree with you 100%. But I think this. I mean, I don't think you've even thought of this. What I'm about to say to you now. So get ready for this.
Right?
Okay.
Is this going to be like mind blowing moment? Am I going to be like?
My mind was blown when I could do it in game. So I think your mind might be blown. I don't know if you were actually there. So this is I'll explain.
Okay. So this could be the first time I ever hear about this. So this is going to be an all natural reaction. Hit me, go.
So. I was on a game like a long while ago, like 2 weeks ago. I don't even know because I play a lot of squad. But I was a squad leader, and basically what had happened is someone had built a forward operating base. You know, you will know where this is. There's a compound. That compound we hid in right next to that flag objective as militia. Do you know what I mean? You have to go down the valley, and then it's near the American flag is there, and there's that compound there. It's really, really close to the objective. Do you know what I mean?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
is it on? Is it on a desert map or a
desert map? Yeah, desert map.
Okay,
but essentially, what it is, is a compound that's probably within 150, 200 meters from an objective. Now, what had happened is in this game was that the defending team, so the Americans, had placed down a forward operating base inside the compound that the flag was in. What our team had done, and I wasn't even aware of this until I actually reached the enemy compound, was placed a forward operating base in that compound there. So it actually allowed me to build stuff right by the compound wall for them. So what I ended up doing then was deploying 6 ladders, like the old medieval Roman sort of
going up the ladders.
Up the ladders. As we built six ladders in a line, and we all built them up. We got them ready, and then everyone just went straight over the top. And it was literally we did get shot out a bit, but we threw a couple of grenades over, managed to get in the compound, and at the end of it, did take it. But again, it was new to me. It hadn't even crossed my mind.
Yeah, that's like the epitome of like the aggressive FOB, isn't it? That's like we're going to put this down here. We're not really going to spawn on it. We're just going to use it so we can build over the enemy's defences. Well, that's great. If you feel that there's a situation in which you can deploy that, I mean, go for it. I mean, that's you know what? I thought you were going to say a lot of things then, but I didn't think you were going to say about building ladders over the enemy's FOB. I mean, that... But if that works, so you can build that. You can do that, can you? Can
yes,
be that close together?
They can be. I think that's when... you find that I think we might have been in a couple of games, but just been unaware of it. When the flag doesn't go down, even though you've got men in that zone that seem to outnumber them, if there's an enemy FOB on the objective, you can't take the flag. You have to get rid of the FOB first.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Well, bloody hell, that is really unorthodox. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about is about using FOBs to waste tickets. And this is something we've done 1 or 2 times before, and it's really hard it's such a hard it's a hard one to deploy effectively, and you've really got to be aware of if it's going to work or not. This is really advanced sort of stuff, but putting an FOB somewhere in which it acts as a decoy from the rest of the fight. And there's only certain places on the certain maps which you can do this, but that it distracts the enemy from the fight, so that they focus on taking that FOB, which allows your friendly players, your friendly team, to take the next objective. So you know what I mean by that, Jace? So if you put
I do remember. Yep.
takes away the attention of the enemy from that objective. Look, people like shooting stuff. They definitely like attacking FOBs and destroying them. So you can use that human sort of initiative to win to your advantage. So if you place an FOB somewhere and you draw the fire of the enemy, for example, right, you could build quite a small, compact, cheap FOB that's quick to put up, and you could put a couple of your guys in it. So if you've got a squad of 9, you could put 3 of your guys in it, right? And you just leave them there and you say, look, make as much noise as you can, shoot at the enemy from that position, sling grenades over, do RPGs, throw grenades, throw smoke, do everything, bring them here, right? Say hello, wave a big fucking sign and say, hello, we're over here, come and get us, right? And while they're doing that, take your other 6 guys and attack the objective. Take your other 6 guys and attack the objective that's near. And if you do it right, and if you've got a few good guys that are good with rifles on that objective as well, they're just going to be bleeding tickets. if you lose that objective, well, fuck it. You've only put 3 guys there. You've lost 3 guys and you've lost the FOB. But you know, you've not spent that long building it, so your momentum hasn't shifted that much. But they've probably lost quite a few people in the process. I mean, over time, the attacking force is always going to win, but they'll bleed tickets. They'll drain tickets. And even if your guys sit up in that FOB and they kill, you know, they killed 6. Let's say there's 3 guys there, and they kill 6 to 10 attacking forces. That's easily doable when you're in an FOB. They've wasted double their tickets for that life. Like it's I've definitely seen it used before. I've definitely seen it done. It sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. But it's just something to think about. Remember that when you play, you are drawn to the enemy's FOB because you wanna flush them out. And the likelihood is you're gonna expect a lot of resistance. The likelihood is the enemy is going to be quite slow. They might be cautious to approach the FOB. You know, if they don't have loads of people, even if they do have loads of people, because they're going to assume that you're all there. You know, they're all there, and use that to your advantage. Leave 2 or 3 guys there, and then flank, go round them. I mean, really moving on. This is like Art of Warfare style. But if you can distract them enough, and we have done this before, myself and the rest of the Liberated Gaming guys when we play together. Use the FOB as a distraction. Send 6 guys out of the FOB when the enemy are attacking the FOB. Let's say they're attacking from the north. Send your guys off from the east. Tell them to go north and come behind the attacking force. Execute the perfect pincer and trap them between the FOB, which is fortified, and superior firepower behind them. And Bob's your uncle. You can wipe. We have literally wiped squads out like that. Like just leveled like 2 or 3 squads by doing that because they're so focused on pushing forward and attacking that FOB, they're not looking behind them.
Yeah, very, very good tactic. Again, things like this can, and squad leaders, this is going back to the Squadcast with the squad leaders, but squad leaders that choose different avenues of approach like this, could end up winning the game by that. It's small decisions that could have a massive effect on the outcome of the game. So like you're saying here, the pincer movement could, you could win the game by 4 tickets. I mean, it's because of what you did, 20 minutes ago, an FOB where you pincer moved on the enemy, won you the game for that round.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably the last thing we can talk about regarding Unorthodox. There's not too many crazy stuff. No. Other things. I think they're like we said at the start of that section. They're definitely things that you need to only try when you're a little more advanced at
more
FOB
confident.
Placement. Yeah, more confident, a little bit more experience. Great. Well, this has been fun. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah,
this has been good. This is
that's a first for me and you, reason I think.
I know, right? Not ripping each other's throats. No, we love each other. Really, we do. But hopefully this has been really educational. Hopefully it's also been mildly entertaining. It's not just been dull. If you're listening to this, I hope that means you've got all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, if you are still here, then thank you for listening. All the way.
Thank you for sticking out.
Lovely.
I think this video is probably going to be about 40-45 minutes long, so thank you for that. And I think probably what we'll talk about next time is the role of the medic. I know, Jason, on your personal channel, which will be linked down below along with mine and the other guys, but I know you've done, or you're going to do, a more in-depth sort of visual thing, video style analogy with medics. But I think it's probably important that we could, for the guys that just don't want to watch the videos and like
just listen to it, of course,
and listening to us to talk. I think probably what we'll do next is medics. Another thing to note, if you're listening to this in sort of the channel's chronological order, as it were, up and coming, we've got a number of interviews with different YouTubers and Twitch streamers. The first one we'll be doing is with the YouTuber Airborne Phoenix, and we'll be talking about Counter-Strike Global Offensive and tactics and team play within that. So if that's your game, make sure you look out for that. If you're only here for squad, there is definitely more coming up. And as I say, probably the next thing we'll talk about is medics. We do have another video coming out soon. It might already be out by the time you hear this.
Yes,
I don't know.
Yes, who knows?
But we've got a nice little bit of a lot less serious and some actual footage of us playing the game, some funny moments, some subtitles, some funny music, some laughs coming out. So stay tuned for that. But thanks for subscribing. Thanks for sticking with us. I've been Reasoner. This has been Jason.
Yes, it has.
You're watching on The Unit. Remember to follow us on Twitter @TheUnitPC, and we'll catch you next time. Take it easy.